Abundance is not something that one attains. It's something that you already are. And it's just remembering that you are and just releasing any limitation or any masks or veils that are stopping you from just realizing that that's where you are right now. The key is to actually feel something, because that is what changes your internal state. It's what changes your energetic signature. You vibrate at a different frequency. You then act from a different frequency. You then call things in from a different frequency. That's how you can test how much progress you're making. It's by how quickly you can feel that gratitude and tune into it, and then act from that state. That's it. When you act from that state, it's like, that's nonlinear manifestation explained right there.
Hello and welcome to the Xander trip. Joining me today for an epic masterclass on abundance is the entrepreneur and mindset wizard, Ebrahim Turner. Welcome, Mr. Turner.
Thanks for having me, James. Good to be back.
When you think of the word abundance, what comes to mind?
Energy. Abundance is a frequency, and it is something that you experience. And through that experience is what leads to the tangible, material things that we tend to define or get confused on what we think abundance is. So abundance, in the most simple definition, is a form of energy.
Most people think of it as a number in their bank account. They think of it as tangible, material things. How can we transform those limiting beliefs from tangible to the energy perception?
So there is absolutely a tangible element to abundance. So most people think of, when they say abundance, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Money, typically, right? That's not wrong. It's just incomplete. So money is one subset of abundance, which is typically the material. I want to give a balanced understanding of what abundance is, because there's the spiritual lens to look at abundance, and then there's the very three-dimensional lens to look at abundance. The spiritual, in some ways, a lot of the spiritual community actually believe that money is like not something they want to be around, right? Healers, people in service, they don't want to charge a lot of money. And so actually that is not in full alignment with abundance, even though they may be abundant in many other areas of life. If you take the opposite end of the spectrum, the 3D world, let's take financial institutions, banks, law firms, governments, the World Economic Forum. They're very abundant when it comes to finances and money, because they essentially create the money and manage the money. And it's a much more material view on abundance, right? So as is often the case, the true answer lies somewhere in the middle. And I think today we can explore that. And I want people I'll share my experience with it, but really I want people to tune in for themselves what abundance means to them. Because ultimately abundance is a feeling at its core, and it has to be something that feels aligned to you, which is why I will share what I teach the entrepreneurs that I coach. But ultimately, I want people listening to tune in for themselves as well.
Yes. Describe to me the different types of abundance.
Yeah. So it really is everything, right? So money is going to be one of the ones people typically think of. But even within money, there are different categories that we can delve into maybe in a little bit. For example, there's cash, there's investment money, there's gifts, there's future money, right? There are these categories within just money alone. But then there's also social abundance, right? Connection, having an abundance of friends, of colleagues, of companions. There's romantic abundance as well, the ability to be romantically connected with people. There's an abundance when it comes to Gaia, when it comes to the environment that we get to be surrounded by. So really, these are typically some of the things that most people will think of, but really it is everything. In the highest definition of it from a spiritual perspective, it really is everything. And so all of these different things that we can talk about all come under the same umbrella of abundance. And what I usually find is that people have certain blocks to abundance, whether it's a money block or maybe a block socially where they don't feel like they can connect with somebody else. And if we kind of like reverse engineer that process, there's usually a block and some kind of limitation or programming going on that happened earlier on in life. And so ultimately, everybody listening to this wants to become more abundant. If we define that as one of the main goals, that's what people want to expand in. We can start with looking at, okay, well, what is stopping you from being there? Because abundance is not something that one attains. It's something that you already are. And it's just remembering that you are and just releasing any limitation or any masks or veils that are stopping you from just realizing that that's where you are right now.
Yeah. Talk to me more about that. Abundance is not something you're trying to attain. It's something you already are.
Yeah. So if you think about it, if I'm saying to you, James, I want to become more abundant, what am I really saying? I'm saying I'm not abundant, or I'm not as abundant as I would like to be. And if we take a moment to explain in the most simple way how energy and the universe works, we are a bunch of atoms vibrating right now at a very fast rate. And if I was to say, I want to become more abundant, I'm saying I'm not that, meaning the energetic field that surrounds me right now is trending more towards one of lack. And so I'm now projecting lack. This is why I do have, I don't want to say problems, but I can see holes in just the spiritual version of abundance, because there are many people in the spiritual community. We're here in Bali, so we get to meet many amazing people in the spiritual community. However, they have their own set of problems when it comes to abundance and blocks.
So, what do they not understand about abundance, do you think?
The three-dimensional side. The spiritual, oftentimes, and these are just generalizations, right? There's always nuance to this, but just to give the generalization, the spiritual lens would say, well, the material is bad. Money isn't something that we should strive for. We can live without it, or some version of that, right? And that's actually not abundant. That's living in scarcity and lack, right? Because deep down, they do want to be more abundant financially as well. But there is, again, just like on the other side, there's programs stopping them from realizing that. And so to truly be abundant is to, first of all, know your self-worth. Because if you don't know what your self-worth is, you can, and it's low, or at least you perceive it as low, then you can only call in what is equal to that in terms of abundance, right? And a lot of people, myself included, start their spiritual journey because they don't feel self-worth, or they do feel a lack of love. So there's still that lack there underlying it. It's masked in spiritual practices, and that's beautiful to try and progress, but you got to realize that you got to kind of work on that self-worth and love first to then feel worthy to receive the abundance that it is that you desire. So to go back to your question, it starts by, first of all, detaching from the need for abundance, which happens by realizing you are already abundant. Now, how do you actually do that, right?
Yes.
That's the question.
What are the practicalities?
It's nice to say that, but how do you actually do it? So a practice I like to do is sit down with a pen and paper and write down 30 things that I have received that I did not do anything for. For example, being born. For example, everything that was given to me up until the age of 18 that was provided by my parents, which I did nothing to deserve, right? And when you go down that, you realize there are many, many things, much more than 30. And the purpose of this practice is to realize how abundant you currently are. But then the second reason is to realize you don't need to do to be abundant, because we live in a 3D society. Doing and receiving abundance, let's specifically more money in this case, are very linked, right? You do X, you do your service or you do your time in 9 to 5 and you get your paycheck. And that's the only way we're programmed to believe we can receive abundance, which is extremely limiting because it's one way of infinite ways that we can receive abundance, right? If you live in the paradigm that you can only receive financial abundance through doing, so it is. Right. But there are many, many, many more ways, and we can get into the other forms of money that we can receive. So starting with that practice of writing down 30 things is key for that, because it helps you to realize that you don't need to do to receive from a spiritual perspective. The second reason is it naturally taps you into gratitude. And probably one of the biggest takeaways I can give in this whole masterclass is that gratitude equals abundance. They are on the same frequency. Why is that? Because when you are grateful, when you give me this coffee, I say thank you. Why am I saying thank you? Because I've just received something from you. And so I'm in a state of receiving. And that is the same frequency as abundance. They're one and the same. So the most abundant people are the most grateful people, truly abundant people. And it raises your energetic frequency. And so now you're receiving. And here's a way to test if you need to work on that. When was the last time you got a compliment? A true compliment. How did you receive that compliment? Did it feel a little uncomfortable? Did you play it off? Did you give them a compliment back straight away before fully receiving it? Did you actually not believe it was true? Because that is a clear litmus test of your current ability to receive. And so by being able to practice that, practice receiving, practice gratitude, and truly embody it, that is what changes the programming inside of you. Because you're now saying, okay, no, actually I am worthy to receive. And for me, this was a journey. I used to really struggle receiving compliments until I realized that, well, people are saying these great things about me. And I used to say, well, I don't want to be attached to that, right? Because I was all for the surrender and the attachment, right? Because if I get negative comments in my life. I got called a Chad today on a YouTube comment. And I was like, I'm not sure what that is, but I'm actually a Dave. That was but I used to say that because if I have that negativity, then if I have the positivity, then should I be attached to either of those? My initial answer was no. But then there's a level beneath that, which is, no, you can still receive a compliment. You just don't need to be, it doesn't need to be your identity, or it doesn't need to be the thing in which we live for, which is a slippery slope. So that's kind of the tangible practice that I would use. And again, why do we do that? It's to decouple doing from receiving, which currently we've talked more about the feminine embodiment of abundance, right? The feminine is the more magnetic energy. It's the receiving side of it. There's actually more, the masculine part of it would be the doing, the practice, right? Now, I don't want people to get confused to say you don't need to do anything. You still absolutely do, but doing those things doesn't actually increase your abundance or lift up the veil to the abundance. It's just going to be doing tangible things, like making more money doesn't necessarily mean creating more abundance if that is coming from scarcity. Because how many people do you know who are millionaires who live in absolute scarcity? So they have, and that's many, many people. I'd say probably more are like that than aren't like that. So then you might say, well, how important is abundance really then if you can still become a millionaire without embodying this? Well, I'll tell you from experience, I'm not a millionaire yet, but when I started to make more money, I was able to attain all of the material things I wanted. I was able to travel where I wanted, have the relationship I wanted, and I was miserable because I thought those things would make me happy, give me joy, give me the freedom. And while it can solve practical problems and you need a certain amount of money, it doesn't actually give you what you want. And what you want is not more money. Every single person would say the number one problem is they want more money, but you don't want more money. You want the things that money can create, the opportunities that it can create. But even with that, you don't even want that. You just want the feelings associated with that, the freedom, the joy, the love, the happiness. Otherwise, it would be meaningless. You could say, I'll go and buy a £10 million supercar and drive it around. But if you couldn't feel the rush and the joy and the excitement of driving that supercar, what's the point, right? There's absolutely no point in it. And so truly, that is the biggest lie we've all been told. We're programmed by the matrix, by the 3D, to strive for this material, very limited form of abundance that doesn't even give us the thing that we thought that we wanted.
What is the opposite of that? What should we be striving for? The unlimited type of abundance.
Yeah. And well, that just is what abundance is. That's real abundance, right? It's unconditional. If you think about it, even from, I want to keep it practical as well. I'll give a practical example. So let's say, let's go back to money. So you want an abundance of money. Okay. Well, do you currently believe that there is an abundance of money? Or do you believe that money is scarce? Because most people believe money is scarce. I studied economics, and you're taught that it is a scarce resource by definition.
That there's a limited amount of it, that we all get a little piece of the pie.
Like literally in the textbooks, that's what it says. So this is program, and this is in higher education. This isn't, some Schwab online. This is the real stuff that is taught.
The reality is,
it can be created like that, right? So if you look at it, how beautiful is that comparison? It is literally created by pressing a button, physical money, cash. And so logically, if it can be created that easily, then it only makes sense that you should be able to welcome it in that easily, right? It's only because we've been programmed by media, by education, by the whole matrix to believe that it is hard to attain. Because whatever we believe is the truth. Belief is what this ultimately comes down to. And so if you believe money's hard, that I had the strongest belief that I needed to be a hard worker. And most people would define me as a hard worker, right? But I actually don't define myself as that. I'm choosing to work, and I'm just doing what I want to do. I wouldn't choose anything else than I'm doing. So to me, it's not hard. You could say I spend a lot of my day doing work. That would be an accurate
You like
definition.
to work.
Yeah. But you can see there's this underlying tone of negativity when it comes to work, or even when it comes to money. The collective consciousness's view of money is negative. Look at how the top billionaires are portrayed in the news. It's mostly negative, right? And sure, some of that's probably, it is what it is. But at the same time, if you think of Elon Musk or you think of Jeff Bezos, what are some of the things that you think, right? And most people would say, yeah, actually, no, they are kind of greedy. They could probably change the whole world with all of that money, right? And so if that is the belief inside, then what are we saying? We're saying money is bad. And now we're not saying this consciously most of the time, right? This is all subconscious, but that's the truth. How do you look at a multi-billionaire on his private yacht versus the homeless man on the street? How do you look at them differently? How do you treat them differently? Who is more abundant, right? Who is actually living a more abundant life? And you could say, well, the billionaire has a lot of material abundance. Amazing. The homeless man could be perfectly content. And I've looked in the eyes of homeless people and seen that contentment. So these are the two extremes. So then, okay, how do we take those extremes and find the middle point where we can embody the energetic side of abundance and the material side of abundance? But it really starts with the inner work first, right? Internal state, external reality.
Let's dive into the energy aspect, because you said in the very beginning of this masterclass, abundance is energy. How can we embody that energy in a practical, daily way?
Great question. So if we look at the energy of money, we just talked a little bit about how it's got a certain density to it, right? It's portrayed that it's viewed for control and all these evil things in the news, okay?
There's a negative subconscious energy that we tend to attach to it.
So abundance is the opposite of that.
Light, free,
yes,
unlimited,
playful as well, right? How like when you're having a good time, if you're out with some friends or a partner and you're just enjoying it, you don't really think about what you're spending as much, right? Because you're just enjoying it. You're having a great time. You might spend a little more. You're on holiday, right? People always spend more money on holiday and they really actually enjoy spending that for the most part because they're in that frequency of joy, of play, of love, and they're happy to pay for that experience. It feels like an aligned energetic exchange in that moment. And so a way to embody that is to think of money just like you would your best friend. So if I'm your best friend and I invite you around to my house, like James is my best friend, I want you to come around to my house so we can hang out, we can have fun. Maybe we take some mushrooms, we just have a great time.
Absolutely.
Of course. And then what is that frequency? It's joyful, it's playful, there's a certain depth to it, it's loving. And then nighttime comes and you say, well, this was a great day, thank you, I'm going to head now.
Great trip.
And I lock the door. And I say, no, you can't leave. You're going to be like, what do you mean? This is kind of strange. I thought we were best friends. That is the same mindset that people have with money. They hold onto it. They cling onto it. Because why? They're living in lack and fear around money. They don't treat money like a best friend. They actually try to imprison money. And this is why it doesn't matter how much money you have on it, because if you have a little bit of money and you physically, like actual in your bank account, if you have a small amount and you treat it scarcely, if you make a lot of it, you're still going to treat it scarcely unless your internal state changes. Now, for some people, does that change when they make a lot of money? Yes, but it doesn't mean it will, right? It absolutely does not mean it will. And there are plenty of people who have made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, right? The internal state didn't change. They didn't upgrade internally as their physical abundance, the material abundance upgraded.
Yeah, I've had that experience where I went from a state of in debt to a state of extreme financial abundance, but my state did not catch up. And I ended up losing all of that money because I was not able to hold energetically to that space.
Yeah.
What is a way that we can upgrade our inner state so that when abundance comes, we can let it flow in and out while also having an abundant bank account, for example?
Practice.
Yeah.
It's training, right? It's repetition.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I'll give you an example. I just enrolled the first student into my new series that I'm doing, 0 to 30. And he was, I sent him the Stripe link and I said, before you pay, I want you to use this as an opportunity. And he was like, okay, why is this guy telling me to not put my credit card details over right now? But I'll listen to him. He's looking at me kind of confused. And I said, these are moments where you have the opportunity to upgrade your abundance. This was a couple hours ago. Tune into how you feel right now. Is there any amount of fear coming up? Is there lack? Did you have to take a loan out to get this payment? What's that bringing up? Notice what is going on internally when you are spending money. And he was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And the practice here is to actually tune into gratitude when spending. And that is the frequency that money will travel in. And it's like, I remember one of my more spiritual mentors described it as quantum money laundering to me. You bring money in, you transmit its frequency, and then you send it out with that new frequency. I like that. I thought that was cool.
I love that. And so you encouraged this client to, before he pays you, tap into the feeling of gratitude.
Yes.
And then press the payment link.
Yes, because what does that do, right? We're recoding here what goes on, because most of the time when people spend, it's, this feels like a lot of money. Is this right? Fear comes up, lack comes up. You're sending that money out with lack. Therefore, you're creating more lack. Whatever energetic signature you omit is what you create more of. So you can spend a load of money, but if it's from lack, you're not creating more abundance, at least on a spiritual level. So that's a practice. And you can do that. I do that all the time. Like, I'll just be at a cafe and I'll pay a couple bucks for a coffee and I'll just tune into that gratitude and say thank you, right? Or if I'm eating food, I'll pray. What does prayer do? It brings in gratitude. It brings in more intentionality for all of that abundance on the plate that has got right in front of me, that has traveled from the sea or the land, from, the farmers who bought it, and to the driver who carried it, to the chef, to the waiter who brought it all the way to me. That entire process just happened. And it's so easy to forget what the reality is because of the law of familiarity. But this is why I said it's practice, it's repetition, because that is how we increase our abundance. We have to reprogram ourselves for what we want. And so it starts with that. And it starts with giving generously. And giving generously can be finance, but I wouldn't even say that's a better or worse way. It can be with your time, it can be with your attention, it can be with your love. The more you give out of that, the more you will attract into that. And when you're in that state of giving, you're not in lack. Because why? Because when you're giving, it fills you up. That is abundance. That is also on the same frequency as abundance, right? So now this is the more masculine side of it. We're doing these certain things to raise our own abundance level. And that's the practical, tangible side of it.
Going back to the best friend analogy. So we don't want to lock money up. We want to let it flow.
Yes.
But what if someone says, I actually have no friends coming into my house. There's no money coming in. So of course I want to save every dollar or invest every dollar, or, how would you talk to someone like that?
It's not about the amount.
Uh-huh.
It's not about the amount of money.
But if someone says, I literally do not have any money coming in, how can I attract it? How can I create it?
Let's take a homeless person.
Yeah.
So they literally have no money, right? Because they're on the street. So what should they do, right? It's nice to say, well, just
treat it like a best friend.
Yeah, but they're literally on the street, right? So if we use that example, a homeless person on the street is probably asking for money. And that's how they survive. They get $5 or $10 in a day, maybe, from asking for money. What's one of the ways you decide whether to give that homeless person money or not? Because I can tell you, and I battled with this for a while, because I always want to give to everybody. But I realized at a certain point that when people were coming from a poverty consciousness or really from lack, is it actually best to support that? Or is it best to actually help them to have a new perspective? What's really going to help them long term? And the difference is with that homeless person, one homeless person they're in the same position. They're both homeless. One person is saying, hey, I just need some money. Please help me out. Like, just anything you got. And you feel that lack, right? Which pushes you away. The other person, what's he doing? He's singing. He's playing a guitar. He's having a good time. He's just trying to brighten people's days. He's giving, he's looking you in the eyes. He's in exactly the same position physically, but he has a completely different consciousness around it. And that is the person who will receive more financial abundance. because that is the frequency he's emitting.
Talk to me about your personal journey from scarcity to abundance.
One thing I will say is it's not linear. So it can be often easy to believe, okay, if I do these 3 steps, then I am abundant, right? It's a state. It's not, it's non-linear in the way abundance works. And I'll go give one thing, then we'll come back to it. If you want to manifest, manifestation is non-linear, right? So when it comes to abundance, it also happens in a non-linear way. So I'll give an example. So when I was, I just moved out from my parents' place, and I moved into like a really amazing like penthouse apartment in London, and it was what I always wanted to do. And I had the Herman Miller chair I wanted. I had the view over London, the brand new apartment, and it like the clean edges on the kitchen counter, and it was beautiful. But I still didn't feel abundant inside. I just got something I wanted, right? But internally, I didn't feel abundant. Now I was like, oh shit, I've got a lot of bills to pay. That was what I actually felt, right? And during this time, I found Joe Dispenza. And it was when I started deeply meditating. And I started deeply meditating also on abundance. What was I doing? I was essentially tuning into gratitude, but on a very deep body level, because we don't think gratitude, we feel gratitude. And you understand that logically, but that's not how most people approach abundance. They're thinking, they're in the head. When you're in the head, you're not in a state of abundance, you're in the logical mind. Abundance is energy. Energy is stored in the body. It's emotion, energy in motion, right? So it's an energetic, it really is an energy. And so I started doing these meditations, and here's the thing, I actually believed this, and everything I say right now, I wholeheartedly believed this. If there's any part of you that doesn't believe it, or is at least willing to suspend your disbelief temporarily, it's not going to work. Because you're just saying, oh, all right, I'll just try this gratitude thing because Ebrahim said it, and of course nothing's going to happen, right? You have to have the belief. And so I said, okay, I'm going to commit to this thing. I'm going to meditate for 3 hours per day. And I don't know if this is really true, but I've read a bunch of books, and you know what? I'm not feeling great, so I'm willing to suspend my disbelief at least for a bit. Why not? What have I got to lose? I'm living in this apartment on my own. I've got nothing better to do. So that's what I did. And I went so deep, and I opened up. I got so much more than just abundance. I got love. I got heart-centeredness. I got romantic love in my life. But one thing I did get, I said one time, I just said, give me a sign that I'm on this path, right? And this was years ago. And one of my first ever YouTube videos was a video of me with a meditation headband, and it's called the Muse meditation headband, and it basically it's like an EEG tracker. It tracks your brainwaves, tells you if you're calm or not, and if there are thoughts going in your head. Pretty cool. So I did a review on this meditation headband, and I had an affiliate link for this, and I'd get like a couple $100 a month from it or something, just from the YouTube video. And then when I asked for that sign, I went to my phone straight after and in my emails, and my inbox was blown up with just commission. I made like $1,000 in like an hour, whereas months leading up to that, it was like maybe a couple $100 for the entire month. And I saw that. So that was the physical evidence in my reality. But here's the thing. Again, it's still my choice how I perceive that. One person listens to this and go, oh, it's just coincidence, right? I chose to believe it was as a result of what I was doing, and I fully embodied that. So that's the key to all of this. Belief really is the key, right? The placebo effect is one very clearly studied how real that is. So you have to have the belief, and then that gave me enough. I was like, okay, cool. This is enough evidence. And there are many other things. I attracted love into my life, and loads of other amazing things happened, not just that. And I was like, okay, no, this is real. Or at the very, very, very least, I at least feel way better than I did before. So again, for the logically minded people, it just makes sense, right? If you feel better, which again, why are we doing everything? Why do we want more money? To buy things and have experiences. Why do we want to buy things and have experiences? To feel love, to feel joy, to feel freedom. So I was getting that. I was literally getting the result of everything I wanted. So it just made sense to continue.
I think also if someone isn't able to tap into belief right away, they could adopt an experimenter's mindset.
Yes.
I'm going to do this like a science experiment, no attachment. I don't know what the results are going to be, but I'm just going to commit. And like you committed to 3 hours a day, probably with not a specific attachment, which made it work for you. If you were attached to a very specific result, it might have actually come from scarcity.
Yeah. And I will say there was attachment at the beginning, because I started doing this, as many people do, from lack. And so I had to transmute that lack, right? And so actually, the cool thing with this is if you're fortunate enough to be somebody who can just say, you know what, that's enough for me, I'm just going to go, you'll actually shift into abundance much faster. Because again, going back to manifestation, it's non-linear. So in your reality, if in your reality, you believe that somebody can come along, see your thing and say, hey, I really like what you're doing. I want to invest $10 million into it as a partner. Let's go. If you genuinely believe that that is a possibility in your reality and you hold space for that because you have that abundant frequency, then it's a very possible reality. And that happens to people all the time.
I love that you brought that up, the non-linear aspect.
Yes.
I feel like one of the hallmarks of scarcity is thinking that everything is going to happen slowly, linearly. There's no quantum leaps necessarily. How can we tap into a mindset of, or a possibility of allowing those quantum leaps to come in?
Yeah, let's use some science first, because science is what got me into all of this. When I was reading those books by Joe Dispenza, that's what gave me the belief. I was like,
which specific ones would you recommend to start with?
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That's his flagship book. I'd start there. Because why? Because it's you could say it's very woo-woo, because people are having healings and becoming millionaires just from closing their eyes. Like, that sounds super woo-woo to me, and it did. And it still does to a degree, but I just know better enough. I've experienced enough to just know that that is how it works, because I have so much evidence and I've just done it so much. But the science is what helped me believe. So in this same case, I would say you can look at quantum physics. This is the newest evolution of physics, which shows that we have energetic fields around us, and these can all be measured. I've got, I think you asked me actually if I had a picture of my energy field. I need to dig that out. I'll show you it. Maybe we can throw it up on the podcast. So we can actually see our energy field, right? And when you can see it, it changes your belief system, because we have it. We all have them, right? We're emitting them right now. We're magnets. And so when we realize that, then what do magnets do? They attract things, and they attract, well, depending on the type of magnet and the polarity, different things. So before going into the non-linear part, first of all, ask, what am I attracting? Because to really tap into abundance, it starts by taking full responsibility for the current reality. And this is where people get tripped up, because we think, okay, I'm going to do the abundance stuff. I'm going to do all these practices, but I don't really want to feel what's going on right now because it's painful, right? It's not how it works. It's taking the sticker, on a wound approach instead of going to the root cause. And this is why there are so many poor spiritual people. And this is why they don't get it. And I love, so many of my friends are like that. And I'm just like, yo, you need to take responsibility for where you are. And that's the first step to it, right? By realizing, okay, here's where I currently am. That doesn't make me less than. That doesn't make me wrong. That doesn't make me shamed. If there are any of those things, I need to surrender to them and let them go first. It's just like cleaning out energetically first. All of the wounds, the pains, the shame, the guilt, whatever it is, just realizing, okay, there's a lot going on in here. And before adding into the cup of abundance that is already full, let's empty it. Let's let go of it first.
Run us through a process that one can use to empty that cup and to heal some of their wounds, to accept what's showing up.
Well, I have it tattooed on my arm, so I can run you through a transmutation process. I'll give a very simple version of it first, which is, if you think about it, everything that you've experienced gets stored in you unless you're continuously in a present state and surrendering to it, right? Every memory, every traumatic experience. How do we define traumatic? Something that sticks with us. So it could be as serious as being in a car accident, or, nearly dying, or being cheated on by a husband or wife, or just you drop something on your foot and now you don't like these wooden tables anymore because it dropped on your foot one time, right? It's different for everyone. But realize that anything that causes discomfort, anything that causes a sense of dis-ease in the body, that is the opportunity right now, because you're feeling that, because your body is telling you, hey, I've got this thing that doesn't feel good right now, and so I'm going to knock on the wall from the inside and make you feel uncomfortable. Why would it do that? Because it wants to get out. It doesn't want to be stuck in there. So it's going to make you feel uncomfortable until you pay attention to that. Now, how do you then let that thing go? Well, here's the thing, it's not a comfortable process. So this is the reason why we're not in that natural state of surrender and letting go, because it's actually uncomfortable to do it. And we're designed to want to have comfort, because why? That's how we survive, which is important, right? That's the priority above everything else. We just got to survive. And that's what we have to do for the longest time in life. We didn't have this level of consciousness in the past, or maybe it was there, but less human beings, less souls were tapped into this type of consciousness. Consciousness is expanding universally at a rapid rate. So we get the opportunity to even have the awareness that this even exists now, right? Because we're so developed, which is amazing. But we're still these kind of like outdated processing systems, aka the mind, for the modern day. So we have to remember that. And we have to say, okay, well, in that case, what do I need to do to update my processing system? I need to continually be using MacKeeper, or whatever that software cleaning thing is called, where it just like deletes anything that you don't need on your hard drive or whatever. And that is a constant state of surrender and letting go. And it looks very different for different people. For some people, it's prayer, talking to God, asking for forgiveness. For other people, it's sitting there, just allowing whatever comes up to fully come up, to feel it, to breathe through it, to relax, to let the discomfort come up until it fully goes away. For other people, it's therapy. For other people, it's avoidance through partying, through drugs, through addiction. Actually, that's probably most people right now. So there's a load of different ways to try and do the same thing. For me, I like psychedelics are another amazing way to do that. I think we have many tools. I would say it's a personal journey. The reason I talk about the trauma transmutation process, which is essentially getting into a meditative state, feeling through what's coming up fully, is because there's no reliance on anything else, whether it's a person, expert, or a substance. It can be done internal at any time. And for me personally, that gives me so much self-confidence to know that whatever happens, I know I can, if my girlfriend leaves me, if I lose all of my money, if my family pass away, and just all my biggest fears happen, I know that I have the tools to fully surrender to that and work through that and clear out everything that is there, and to come back to presence and a peaceful state.
What is the biggest lesson about abundance that you've learned in the last 12 months?
That's a good question. Hmm. Well, for me personally, I don't know. I'll just give what I was trying to think. How do I say this for the audience? But I'll just give my personal thing that I have really experienced. It becomes very natural at a certain point, like everything else. So the reason I took a minute to think of an answer to that question is because I haven't thought about it that much. Because it's just like,
It's part of your being.
yeah, and or if I feel scarcity, like if something happens that triggers scarcity, then it gets resolved typically a lot faster. And this is going back to what I said earlier. It's non-linear, so it doesn't mean I'm always abundant. And that's not the goal, because it's an unrealistic goal. And whenever our expectation is not met, that's when we suffer. That's when we're in scarcity. So my goal is not to always be in abundance. It's to continue on my path, expanding and growing every day. And when things happen, because I expect things to happen that are not in alignment with my preferences and expectations every single day, because they do every single day, I can come back to a more neutral or higher state with more ease or in a shorter time period. That's my personal goal.
What are the common mistakes you see people making when they try to switch from scarcity mindset to abundance?
How long have we got for this podcast? This masterclass. Okay. So I'll go. I think usually when it comes to abundance, it's usually people who are more spiritually minded or who are more open to it first. So I'll talk to those people. I used to be so against this stuff because, shout out to my mum, who I love more than anything. She watched and read the book The Secret when it first came out, and it drove me insane because this book was saying, you just tune into it and it just comes into your life. And it literally said you don't have to do anything. Like I actually said that. So that really frustrated me for a really long time. And the number one mistake is that we don't have to do anything, right? We can just do the inner work, but not the outer work. That's like embodying the feminine, but ignoring the masculine. And I would say usually I find on the spiritual side, that's where more people are at. Now, it's not to say that those people who have less material abundance, there's anything wrong with that. Actually, they can be in a much higher state of abundance because they recognize they're living in an abundant nature. They have a thriving social circle. They have meaning in their life, and they truly are abundant. And for them, they're living a life that is completely in alignment. And that's beautiful. And they should do that. But there are also many people who would say, okay, I'm doing this, I'm being spiritual, but secretly they just want more money. Like secretly they don't want to have to be worrying about rent every month.
100%.
You're right. And that's not actually abundant. So that's definitely one of the top mistakes.
Pretending that you don't want money.
Yeah. And just, but why is that? Because there's the underlying subconscious belief that money is bad, right? Or you're greedy for wanting more. You've got enough. My dad has this one. I love my dad. He looks at all these billionaires. He's just like, they're just so greedy. Why do they keep going? Why do they need to have more? Why can't they just stop? Well, because they're not doing it for the money. That's why.
Something else is driving them.
Yeah. And until you get to that certain point in your own journey when you're driven by other things than money, you can't, like, you're stuck essentially. And again, like, you might get to a certain point and then you are happy. And for many people that is the case. But then there are other people who want to continually grow and expand for their entire life. And that's their unique life path. And by judging them, even if it's subconscious, you are, again, programming more lack and scarcity inside of yourself. A really good friend of mine called Hader, his father, before he passed away, God rest his soul, used to always say to him when they were growing up, see that man across the street, he's just pulled up in a Ferrari and we're living with not, we don't have much here. And he would always say, may God give him more. He would always say that. And my good friend Hader, super abundant person in all ways, financially, materially, but the amount he can give, the love he has, the way he even looks, he has an abundant energy about him because that was what was programmed into him from a young age. Seeing abundance and wishing more for them, right? Going, wow, that person has so much. That person has everything they could ever need and more. May God give them more.
How does that come back to you? How does that sort of attitude help one become abundant?
Because if you look at that example, you could say, well, they have enough. It's not abundance. Abundance is limitless, like we spoke about earlier. Right?
So it's seeing the unlimited potential in everyone, even those who have a lot.
Yeah. What is a lot?
Right.
That's just a program definition. What a lot is to you or I might be completely different to someone who has $100 billion net worth. Well, it definitely is, right? So we just have a different mindset when it comes to it. And oftentimes, I'm guessing when you had that 7-figure business, well, actually, I'll ask you, what was a lot then? When you were investing into new stock, what was a lot versus what was a lot to you 2 years prior?
When the business was flowing really nicely, I wasn't really even thinking about the specific amounts. I just was enjoying the flow of it. It was when I started, like you said, shutting the door and trying to keep the money, keep the best friend in the house and not let it escape, that it started leaving me.
Yeah. So it's really easy to feel abundant when there's a lot of external things around, right?
Yes.
It's easy. Like you don't need to be trying to work on this stuff when you're already feeling like it.
Yeah.
But you actually do, because unless you work on it, then unless you have that awareness and work on it consciously, then you will probably just fall to a natural low of scarcity, right? And so even who you're surrounded by, if you're surrounded by people who are like, okay, it's time to pay the check. Well, no, you got that extra side than me or whatever. And it's always just like a pain. It's always reinforcing scarcity. So who you're choosing to listen to is also so important when it comes to abundance. And if you can see someone who is abundant, right? This is one of the hacks I did when I was first exposed to people who were spiritual and financially abundant. I was like, oh my God, yes, finally. I have a physical example of this. I made sure to pay very close attention to the way they lived, to the lightness in their life, to the play, to the never even looking at the bill, to getting the nicest suite in the hotel. And all of it came from just an unlimited energy of love, an energy of joy, an energy of gratitude. It was a joy to be around them, right? Versus I could have been with somebody with that exact same net worth who, wow, this is a lot for this hotel. I don't know, maybe we should go somewhere else. Like, oh, that dinner's, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You can see the difference there.
Absolutely.
And so find examples of people who are who have the traits that you want. And I mean, step one is just literally just like try out what they're doing, right? That's a practical answer. Now, I wouldn't say that's like a lifelong solution, because you don't want to take on someone else's identity, but it can get you pretty far just by saying, okay, maybe like not what's this person saying right now, but what are they actually doing? And ask them, how do you think or feel when you have this situation come up? And observe how they are. And when you can see it, then you can believe it.
When you talk to your mentors or people that you see are doing well spiritually and on the physical plane, and they're abundant in both areas, what are some lessons you picked up from your mentors?
The first thing that came to mind when I look at mentors of mine who are abundant in the spiritual and physical realm is aligned spending. So, and this is something I still work on because I can spend very easily and I can free flow a lot. And when it comes to financial abundance and spending, there's really two places you can spend from. There's the ego and the soul. And two people can buy a supercar, and one can be from the ego and one can be from the soul. So it's not about what the thing is. Again, it's what is the underlying intention behind it. I can tell you I've spent from both. So I can say they feel very different. One can be more, let's say, buy a nice watch. Well, why did I, and this was younger, I used to collect watches. Why did I buy the new Breitling when I'm a freaking teenager and I don't need one? Well, because I wanted to look cool and I wanted to feel more secure and I wanted to feel more self-worth and I wanted people to recognize me and feel significant. It's from the ego, right? That little kid doesn't know any better. Versus now I wear a gold watch which actually has diamonds in it, which you could say, well, that's more of a flex. But the reason I wear it is because it was my granddad's and he brought it over from Africa and it reminds me of where I came from every single day. And he's passed away now and it reminds me of my roots and family. That's from the soul. And you know what the funny thing is the way people perceive it, even when I don't tell them that story, is completely different. The way they look at it and they're just like, wow. Versus, oh, that's a sick watch. People can feel the difference because there's just a different energy around it, right? It's carrying a different frequency.
When you see some of your friends struggling financially, what would you advise them? What do you see in them that they're not doing or not looking at or not perceiving correctly?
So when it comes to finances specifically, it's not always to do with abundance, because I have friends who do have an abundant mindset actually, and they don't have a lot of finances. The thing is that they actually aren't living in a energy of scarcity. So you see the difference there? They're struggling financially and they logically, and I had a conversation with a friend about this a few days ago. He listed out the different categories of his life from spirit, relationship, family, finance. Everything was an 8 or above. Finance was a 1.
How do you explain that energetically?
Well, here's the thing. He's actually doing the inner work side of it. He just hadn't figured out finance specifically yet, for him specifically. He just hadn't figured out how to embody the traits, the masculine traits that are required for finances. This is why he already had the spirit. He had pretty much had the spiritual side. Super free flowing, super playful. One of the most playful people I know, but he didn't have the money. But here's the thing. He's not living in scarcity. He's like, I need to get this thing solved. I'm going to figure it out. And so it is, and he will.
So what is the masculine aspect that he's missing in terms of finance?
Starts with taking full responsibility. So for the current situation, most people live in delusion. Most people are living in a delusional reality where it's too painful to admit the truth. And until you can admit the truth, you're living in a false reality. And so you're not really doing the right things that are required to increase your finances. You have to start by fully admitting and going inward on that process of feeling like, okay, yeah, this is where I am right now, and this is a reflection of me. And that is the first step, right? Taking responsibility. And then from that point, start doing the things that you need to do to make money, right? Start realizing that you're doing this to make money, right? You want to create this thing, you want to do this job, it's to make money. That's the primary intention. And that's okay, right?
But shouldn't there be, going back to the energy component, if they're truly living in abundance in all the other areas, what is the block around money specifically? Shouldn't opportunities flow to them from that state?
Well, here's the thing. And this is a specific example of the friend. That's exactly what's happened. Within a very short period of time, some incredible life-changing opportunities have flowed to him.
Oh, beautiful.
And now he's on that path. But he still needs to take responsibility, right? He's had the feminine side of it. He's had the energetic side. Bang, bang. And I was literally last night, like, saw these opportunities happen. Incredible. He still needs to take responsibility. He still needs to do the work. He still needs to follow through with those opportunities, because the opportunity can come. If you don't take advantage of it fully, which is the masculine, then it's just going to fly by.
Why do people have a hard time taking responsibility?
It's easier not to. Right? It's painful to take responsibility. Right? It means admitting a lot of things that you don't want to admit about yourself, which is painful. And we don't want to live in pain. But for me, the way I got through that was realizing the pain, the long-term pain of not taking responsibility and living in regret of not doing it far supersedes the short-term pain in that moment.
Is it taking responsibility? There's an aspect of hard work there as well, isn't there?
As an aspect of work, absolutely, yeah. Aligned action.
So people who are financially struggling, is it that they're not working enough or working smart? Or how do you see the relationship with work and money?
So, yeah, there's quite a few ways to go with this. What I would say is, in the 3D, you work and receive a paycheck, right? In the 5D, you can attract money by holding space for that. And I've seen these things happen. I've literally, like, people who are extremely spiritually advanced, I've seen them do that. So I know both are possible. But here's the thing. If the goal is, again, to create more abundance, you're probably somewhere in the middle, meaning just do both, right? It's just like the most logical way to do it is just by doing both, because it's like saying, well, I can do a slam dunk from 10 meters from the line like Michael Jordan. It's possible to do that. Right. And that's what I'm going to hinge my career on, of doing that slam dunk. But doesn't it make a lot more sense to just train every day and work really hard and be around the right people and do all the right things and hold space for that possibility, and realize that might not happen, but it could also happen, and just live life that way?
So is that the missing part of the secret? That it's too much on the, I'm going to manifest this magically. And
for the spiritual people, yeah. But then for the 3D people, it's the other way around. There's no belief in this, which is why they may even get the finances in the bank account, but internally they're not living a fulfilled and joyful life, which is also not necessarily a bad thing if that's what their soul came here to experience. So when I say that, I'm not saying one is better or worse. There is no judgment towards either side. It just is, right?
What is a meditation that the listener can do, maybe similar to the one you did for 3 hours, that they can start doing today to practice abundance?
Let's do 3-hour meditation right now.
Let's do
it.
Let's go. Let's do it. I'm down. I have no time limit here. I'm abundant in this podcast studio.
Beautiful. So I'm trying to think if I have one. If I do have one, I'll for my community, I'll give it to you so the listeners can plug in. But I don't want to say I definitely do, because I honestly can't remember off the top of my head. But essentially what it looks like, and I do this at the end of all my meditations, is tuning into gratitude. It's so simple, man. But it's simple, but at the start, it's not usually easy, because it's hard to feel grateful when your mind is just going survival, you need to get money. It's really hard to do that. So for me, I just make it believable. It's like with affirmations. If you say, I'm abundant, and you're like, I do not feel abundant, you're saying you're not that. So you're actually pushing it further away. So in the affirmation sense, what could you do? You could say, I'm on the path to expanding my abundance. Every day I become a little more abundant. My future self is thanking me for this work I'm putting in now to become more abundant. Things that you can truly actually believe. I'm putting in the work to become more abundant. You can believe that if you're actually doing it, and you can stack up. So when it comes to the meditation, which I would advise gratitude, is to tune into gratitude and just tune into some things that you're grateful for. You know, the fact that you do have somewhere to sleep, the fact that you do have people who love you, the fact that you have all of these beautiful skills that you can share with the world. Those are real things. That's not woo-woo fluff. That's the truth. That's reality. And when you feel that, you're in an abundant state. And then you just go and act from that state, right? The key is acting from that state. Because when you're acting from the fear monkey mind state, you're actually giving that energy off in reaction in day-to-day encounters. And even if you attract opportunities from that state, they are going to be opportunities that reflect that state more likely than not. So it's really, the key is the internal state work, tuning into gratitude, feeling it. And here's the thing, I would rather you, instead of having a timer saying I'm going to meditate for this amount of time, meditate until you actually feel something. So that could be 5 minutes, or it could be like it was for me back then, 3 hours to actually feel something, right? But the key is to actually feel something, because that is what changes your internal state. It's what changes your energetic signature. You vibrate at a different frequency. You then act from a different frequency. You then call things in from a different frequency. And that's when you're actually that's how you can test how much progress you're making. It's by how quickly you can feel that gratitude and tune into it, and then act from that state. That's it. When you act from that state, it's like that's nonlinear manifestation explained right there.
So you get in the state, the inspiration comes through, you're channeling that abundance signature, and you act from that state.
Yeah, it's like when my sales team were getting coached by Brendan actually a couple of days ago, and a lot of it came down to mindset, right? And they were like, yeah, and he asked, but he basically said the reason he's so good at sales is because he loves people. And they said, how do you do that? Right? And he said, and he laughed and he paused for a minute and he said, I just became closer to God and I just feel eternally grateful. And so I just love everyone. So that was the true answer, right? And what they wanted was what are the 3 steps? Well, the 3 steps are practice getting into gratitude every day, or whatever creates that feeling of gratitude, which some people it's religion, some people it's spirituality, some people it's writing it down, whatever actually gets you into people speaking to their parents. I love to just tell friends what I'm grateful for about them randomly. I'll just tell them. It feels great to just give. And then you take that forward, right? You just take that into the day. And anytime you realize, oh, I'm not feeling so grateful right now, I feel the scarcity, realize that is a good thing, because you've now gained awareness that you're not in an abundant state. And so you can now use the similar process to get back into an abundant state. And then you go and act from there. And it's like meditation. A thought comes into the mind. Oh no, I'm thinking. No. Just need to quieten the mind again. Thought comes into the mind. Oh no, I'm thinking. No, you just need to quieten the mind again. Every time you do that, it's a good thing. It's a positive feedback loop. That's what's retraining the mind, right? And in the same way, every time you feel scarcity, that is the opportunity to train and get back into abundance.
So if there's one key takeaway that the listener can take away from this masterclass so far, is tap into gratitude.
That's the most practical thing I can say to do, because gratitude equals abundance.
Yes. What is you mentioned surrender is another energetic piece of abundance. How does surrender tie into abundance?
It's the starting point of everything, really, because surrender is what creates peace. It's what creates a natural state of presence, an empty cup, an empty mind. And so anytime we want to do something new or add something in, you've got to first of all ask, what's actually already in there? It's like if you move into a new house and it's beautiful, sleek design, minimal, it's perfect. And then you get into a relationship, and then now your partner actually loves lots of things. And so they start bringing things into it, and it's nice and it's becoming more homely. But 30 years go by and suddenly it's just full of all these random things, right? you're like, crap, there's no space to put anything in here anymore. And it's stressful, right? You just feel like there's all crap in my home. You've got like banana skins on the floor. It's like not a nice environment to be in, is it? It's the same way when it comes to surrender. The act of surrender is cleaning out your house because it's cleaning you internally. It's letting go of things that you don't need anymore. So it's why when you physically clear out and let go of things in your personal life, clothes, stuff, whatever, it actually feels good, doesn't it? Yeah, you're like, oh, wow.
So good.
Sometimes for me, it feels better than when I bought the freaking thing.
So true.
Actually, the majority of the time. Isn't that crazy? So knowing that, it's the same process internally. It's just surrendering, because surrender is what lets go of the stored subconscious thoughts or the emotions in the body, which then creates the space energetically to bring in and call in more abundance. Because you can call in more abundance and you can be in that state and you can do the practice, you can do the gratitude. But if you've still got all of this like stuff inside of you, which every single person listening to this will do because we're human beings and we have to do this constantly, then it's like, okay, cool, we've got like 10% more abundance, but then there's still like 85% scarcity because of all of the traumas and imprints and thoughts. So what if instead of just working on increasing the abundance, we reduce all of the scarcity and things holding us back, and then the abundance naturally just rises? So really, with all of this, surrender is the highest path, because when you are in a fully surrendered state, like if you're in a shroom ceremony, you've surrendered at a certain point. You know what that feels like. It is. There's no feeling like that.
It's divine.
That can be attained naturally, and you can just feel like that all of the time and more than you could ever imagine. That is what's possible with surrender. And then from that state, you're not even thinking, how do I become more abundant? Because you're already abundant, right? You're in that divine state, which is also abundance, because abundance is energy.
Yes, it comes back to what you said in the beginning, that you are already abundant. It's not about attaining it. It's about removing the blinders on abundance, the limitations that you're creating in your mind. Yeah. And I do notice with shrooms, oftentimes in the trip itself and definitely right after, my manifesting powers increase by 10 times.
Yeah.
Texts will come in that are exactly the solution to the thing that I need. People will contact me that I haven't spoken to in a few months, and it's like exactly what is needed. And I think it's because the shrooms open up that flow. And like you said, maybe the surrender piece is so present. Yeah.
So for you, I'd say your home play is to tap into that state more often yourself. And once you start doing that and you see the results in your reality, just like you've seen them with shrooms, and you have that same level of conviction that I explained I had back then when I had all that affiliate money randomly coming in, you'll then be like, I want to do this all the time, right? And it's not an effort to do it, because you know what happens when you do it. So it's a balance of, in a way, you can expect abundance because you've actually called it in, but you can't expect exactly how it will come in. What you just described there with those texts coming in and those opportunities, that is nonlinear manifestation. In your head, you couldn't have said this is how it's going to happen, but it happened because you did the inner work to expand and be on that higher frequency. That's magic. That's what makes life beautiful. And that is what we should strive for. We should strive to focus and control all of the things that we can control, which is what we do to our internal state, the actions we take, and then we just let go of what happens. And when you let go of what happens, it's like looking through, those like on castles, you have those little archer turrets and they've got those tiny little squares where they used to shoot their bow and arrows through, and they used to have those small squares so they couldn't get shot back at. That's how you're currently looking at life, through this tiny little turret, right? All you can see is this. But once you fully let go, once you fully clear out and embody that abundance, it's like, whoa, look at all of these cool things. Look at all these cameras. Look at all these people. Look at this beautiful world that I live in. You can see it now. It was there the whole time. I was it the whole time.
Yeah.
I just couldn't see it because I was like this.
So in the metaphor, the turrets are like the protection, the defense mechanism that we're putting up. Exactly. The surrender is taking away all the walls, knowing that whatever arrows come, you can handle them.
Yeah.
In your day-to-day life, is there a surrender process or even a subconscious technique that you use?
Yeah. Every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the transmutation. So it's anytime I feel discomfort, I'm like, this feels heavy right now. I'm like, okay, this happens automatically, but here's the process broken down. I feel discomfort, usually in my stomach or in my chest area. That's where it most commonly happens. I'm like, okay, past Ebrahim, what did he do? Have another coffee, get on with more work or whatever, right? And just try to avoid it and sweep it under the rug or run away, right? And escape and avoid and be in delusion. Now, all I do is recognize that that is the opportunity for me in this moment to release something that will help me to become more abundant, that will help me to become more joyful, that will help me to fulfill what God's plan is for me by experiencing this right now fully and not running away. And so I will go through that there and then in the moment, which can be a few seconds now, or it could be a few minutes, or it could take me a few days sometimes. But I will continually tune into that feeling. And I've just done it enough times to know that even though it doesn't feel comfortable, I do it anyway. It's just like you look at a professional athlete, they don't want to train 14 times a week, but they know that's what they need to do to perform at the level that they want to perform at. And at a certain point, you can, the emotions don't carry as much of the charge they used to. They don't affect you in the same way because you've continually just been cleaning out.
Can you run us through a recent example in your life where you applied the transmutation technique? And
yeah, so I had 2 clients from my agency say they wanted a refund on the same day. And they were both very certain about that they wanted that, let's say, which would have been like 20K. And so I felt fear, I felt lack, not just about the money, but all of the knock-on effects of, okay, well, he said he's going to go and tell everyone that he had this bad experience. What does that mean about me? How will I be perceived? How will I be judged? Right? Me, going into the ego.
We still love you, Ebrahim.
Which is fear. Oh, thank you, bro. Thank you. But can you see where that goes? It goes straight to ego and fear, right? I'm focused on myself. And so by going through that process of realizing, okay, this feels really uncomfortable right now. How am I going to provide for my team? What are they going to think of me? What's blah, 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 right? I'm in the mind. As soon as I recognized I was in the mind, I was like, okay, what do you need to do? You need to do the opposite. So what am I right now? I'm in the mind. I'm tense. I'm in fear mode. Triggered. What do I need to do? Well, I need to get into the body. I need to relax. I need to come back to my heart space. How do I do that? I feel fully what is happening. I feel the discomfort. I accept the discomfort. I invite it in. How do you know you've done that? It feels like relief. That's how you know you've done it, because you can feel the difference. And in that example, it took me a few goes to it didn't just happen in one go. I had to work at that over like 3 or 4 days. And I had to speak to people about it. I spoke to Brendan about it, my mentor, and I was like, this is how I'm feeling. I spoke to Maggie because I realized that one of my fears was how she would perceive me. So what did I do? I spoke to her vulnerably and I said, hey, like, this is what's coming up. Here's the fears that comes up. She was able to provide love and support to me, which helped alleviate that. And I just continued to do the inner work and the letting go of that until, and so it released. And that then allowed me to shift away from myself and me, ego to, well, what's actually best for the client here? Where are they coming from? Why are they so upset? Where it doesn't seem rational that they'd be this upset. So what's going on in their life? How can I help them? What can we now do to support them, right? One of them then was fine. The other one, we figured out a new plan to go on, and we're all good. I changed my state. I then took aligned action from that state. I didn't respond from that state. I didn't act from that state. I took the responsibility to be like, oh, this is bringing up a lot of stuff for me that I still need to work on. All right. That doesn't mean I'm going backwards. That doesn't mean I'm not good at spirituality. It doesn't make me any lesser. It just means I'm a human. And this is my current process to go through. And now taking that forward, here's the thing. How does that then affect me? What's the knock-on effect of doing that? Well, I want to expand my business tenfold. So do you think those situations are going to come up more if I'm expanding my business more? Yeah, they will, guaranteed. So now, whereas before I may have had subconscious limitations about, well, do I really want to expand if I'm going to have more pain? This is what happens to a lot of people. That's why I'm giving this example. Do I want to really take on more clients if I know that there's going to be more people that are unhappy? There's going to be more people that don't like me. Nah, I'll just stay safe. I'll just stay at this amount. This is what so many people do subconsciously. And I did it for a long time. And so by letting go with that, going through that process, and I'm fortunate enough to seek counsel from multiple people around me who have gone through that process, which is why I said having somebody who is embodying that really does help if you can have that. Then now I've expanded. So now I'm able to hold space for more abundance in my business because I accept the reality that that can happen more. But now I know that I can handle it. I can take on more. My team can take on more because we've also all gone through this process. Now we can do more, right? Now we can expand more. So and then there's so many more knock-on effects. Those are just the first order of consequences. There's like, it goes to the nth degree.
Because you've dealt with the fear of
Yes.
this situation, it unlocks the next level of life where these situations no longer bother you. You know how to deal with them.
And if they do bother me in the future, that's also okay,
Yeah.
right? Because I know I can handle it.
Yes.
I can just handle it. It's like whatever happens, I can handle it, right? I just have that belief because I've done it so many times.
When you said I invited the discomfort in, I felt like you felt the discomfort in your body. How does that work practically, inviting the discomfort in, truly feeling it, truly transmuting it?
That process works by not avoiding it. Because if you notice, if you break down what happens in the moment, what's happening is you're in the mind and you're thinking about all of the things that could go wrong that probably haven't even happened, maybe based on past experience. So I'm recognizing I'm in the mind, first of all. I'm then, once I've calmed the mind, like, okay, cool. So just the mind going. The mind is not me. The mind is just going, doing what it does, producing tens of thousands of thoughts per day. These are just some thoughts that my body creates an emotional response to that I currently don't like. Because if the body was creating emotional responses that I did like, if my mind was going, oh God, you're going to lose everyone around you, but I'm feeling love inside, what do I care?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because I'm feeling good. So it's really the emotion that you don't like, right? It's the mind just triggers the emotion when we're not in a present conscious state.
It's the meaning we apply to it.
And it's the illusion that you live under that you are the thoughts, right? You're not those thoughts. When you're in that observer state, when you're in meditation, when you're just in a peaceful state, when you're in a ceremony, you can very clearly observe reality and what's going on. You're detached. And so they just come and go like clouds, right? They're just like, cool, next one. That's a nice thought. That's a not nice thought. But it's, again, like you said, it's just the meaning we decide to attach to them. And that's where it starts. That's where it starts with inviting it in. And then from that point, it's just fully feeling it. And the more you can just get used to the feeling part of, okay, yep, this doesn't feel comfortable right now. It's not the known. But on the other side of that is where the joy, the relief, the love lies. Eventually, you start looking forward to that because you know that's what happens. It's like exactly like the gym. If you don't go to the gym, probably sucks because it's literally putting yourself in suffering and pain. But eventually, once you do that enough times, you realize, oh, I feel this dopamine after, I feel this rush, I feel this confidence. I'm physically growing and looking better. I feel better. I'm stronger. Then you enjoy the suffering. And I'm sure you know people who are crazy and just like love killing themselves in the gym. It's because they know what the outcome is.
Yes. It reminds me of, sorry?
I was going to say, and it's the same process.
Yes. It reminds me of a book I recommended to you, The Busting Loose from the Money Game. And in it, the author talks about how the universe hides these eggs of resistance in your hologram, and it leads you to them on this Easter egg hunt. And then the egg of discomfort and resistance comes up in your life in various ways. And the job is to crack that fear open. And then that releases a tremendous amount of power, which you then can apply to up-leveling your business, up-leveling your life, moving to the next step of the game.
Yes. All expansion comes from discomfort because you're coming out of the comfort zone, right? In that egg, it's pretty comfy in there. Even though there's fear, it's known. And okay, maybe I don't like this, but at least I know what it is, even though I'm suffering and I'm not really happy and I'm not really living the life I want. At least I know that fear. At least I know I can live in this suffering for at least some amount of time. Whereas when you crack that egg open, it's the unknown. You don't know what's out there yet. It could be worse. It could be the biggest opportunity of your life. You don't know because it's the unknown. And as humans, we have a tendency to not like the unknown because it can equal uncertainty, which can equal unsafety. And we just want to be safe and survive. But all of the opportunity is in that unknown. And so again, it's just as why I say repetition is one of the most important things, because you go through the practice, you then experience the beauty and magic that happens in the unknown, and you get addicted to it, just like anything else. You're like, wow, like what else is going to come today? I'm just inviting more in. It's like you wake up and it's like, whoa, what's going to happen today? I don't know. I'm excited.
Would it be accurate to say that scarcity, there's an attachment to the known, and abundance, there's an openness to the unknown?
Beautiful way of putting it.
So there's surrender, gratitude. Are there other aspects of abundance that you think are important to dive into or tell the listener about?
The one we've spoken about is play.
Play, yes.
This is very key because we, in the 3D world, particularly in work, which is what we spend most of our time doing, it can have a serious tone to it. Work, even by its frequency and definition, has a slightly negative connotation to it. Oh, I've got to go to work now. I've got I'm doing my 9 to 5, whatever. You don't want to be doing work for most people, right? You don't have a positivity. You're not like, oh, it's time for work, right? Not many people think that. So, what was my point? Where are we going? What was your question again? Could you remind me?
So there's the surrender piece, the gratitude piece, and the play piece.
Yes. So a key piece, and this is very practical, is to embody play more often and to just look at life through a lens of play. And you could say, what would a comedian think in this situation? What would a clown be doing in this situation? And the reason for doing that is because it brings lightness. The most spiritual people I've met are the most light and playful, because it's such a high frequency, because play is along the same kind of frequency as joy. And if you look at David Hawkins' scale of consciousness, I'm pretty sure joy is even above love on the frequency scale. So if you can experience play and joy by the results of that, think of the resourcefulness that you can tap into when you're in a playful state, right? It's light, it's easy. Everyone can play. You can't be bad at playing because it's play. It's free flowing. There's no rules. You're just playing. And so when you can bring that into your day-to-day life with work and just invite that in more, make jokes, see things in a more lighthearted way, it's very magnetic. Money and play are also on the same frequency. So when it's playful, it's light, you just want to be around it. It's like, oh, like they look like they're having fun over there. I want to join in. When you see people having a good time, it makes you feel like you're having a good time, right? It just lights you up. And so when you're having a good time with your money best friend, you want to keep playing. And you want to keep playing more and more and more. And why are you playing? It's not to be greedy and attain more. It's because you love doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So play is that key, particularly for men.
Yes.
Who are more in the logical mind. Play is that key piece that we bring in. And it's a balancing act, because there's still the responsibility of taking action and having a degree of structure. we could also invite play and fun into that at the same time.
Is there a way you inject play into your day-to-day life?
Yeah, man. My girlfriend definitely helps, because when I'm speaking to her, around her, I'm never serious. Like, I'm never ever serious. So that just helps so much.
She told me there was a goofy side to you that no one else sees but her.
Yeah. She's very proud of that. She gets that. But yeah, that she does. But then practically, what if you don't have that? Well, this is why having good people around you is so important, who you can just have
that bring that out of you.
Yeah. And not even just bring it out on you, but to people who you can be playful with, and it will be received. You know what I mean? And my closest friends and the best mentors I've had, every single one of them have been playful. Like, yes, there's a time to be serious, but most of the time it's play, because we're adding to each other. We're filling each other's cups up energetically. It's light, right? You want to be around that. You're looking forward to spending time together because it's going to be fun. You're going to enjoy it.
Yes. Talk to me about self-worth and how someone listening who maybe realizes, oh, I don't feel worthy of abundance. I don't feel worthy of money. How can they tap into self-worth? Or what has helped you on your path?
There's a lot of things. I'm just thinking of the best way to approach this. So it goes back to what we touched on in the beginning about decoupling doing from receiving. This is I would put this in the feminine category, which is actually, it's not men or women who are actually, it's funny because it's a feminine energy in a way, but usually women struggle with this more, with self-worth, when it specifically comes to finances, at least. I'm just talking financial. And it's down to programming, right? It just comes down to programming. So why do women get paid less than men? Why is there a gender pay gap? Well, because first of all, women didn't even used to be able to have jobs, right? Because their roles were different in society. And so they're still perceived as able to create less value in the marketplace than men. And you can say that's not true. Look at the paychecks. That gives you the truth. And that's how we live. And so women have, on average, less self-worth when it comes to finance, and therefore they don't want to ask for the promotion. They don't want to charge as much. Whereas a man in that same scenario could say, yeah, I would easily charge this amount for that service, because they have been programmed by society to say that is what their worth is. They've just been told that, right? So again, it's just programming. And so knowing that's, in this example, where it stems from, it's just a case of choice. And to give a practical way to look at this, take the attention off yourself, because it's self-worth, right? Self, in a way, is partly embodying ego. So if we just put the attention on who am I in service to instead, or what is the mission here, what is the service here, then suddenly the value you attribute to your worth can be astronomically different, because you're now looking at it in terms of what is the impact I'm able to create with this? What is the outcome that I'm able to create with this? Who am I empowering through what I'm giving to the world? So that's just a practical thing for people to do, because and oftentimes it's way more than you realize. So you're like, oh wow, okay, I can start charging more, I can start asking for money, because you can see what that result leads to.
So taking the attention away from self, paradoxically, gives you more self-worth, because you're focused on the impact you're creating for others.
It's just a practical step, that you can just do right now. I like to just give tactical things as well.
Yes.
With the high level stuff, just so you can you could take that away today and say, okay, well, I was thinking of charging this, but now actually I can see the value this provides. And here's the thing, when you can, let's just go and keep on this example, charge more money for things, what does that enable you to do? Because let's say you're a hotel interior designer and you want to design the most beautiful spiritual hotels in the world. Well, if you're on a really tight budget, you can't use the best materials, you can't have the best architects, you can't create the vision that you truly want. And so you're not actually in alignment there, to your soul at least. But when you charge the amount that actually feels good to you and that feels embodied and aligned, you now have so much more, and that might be 10 times the amount. You can now get the best architects, the best materials, create the best designs, which is so much more expansive. And that is more in service. And that might mean it's different clients. That might mean it's different types of people. That's okay, because that's what's aligned, right? And there'll be somebody else for that other client who they're actually aligned to one another. And that's also great. And so it's actually in service to charge, I don't just want to say more, because it's not more for the sake of more, but it's to charge what is actually aligned to you. What do you actually want for what you're doing? And you can take when you tune into that, you can take the question of what do I think someone will pay for this off the table for a moment, while you tune into, okay, well, what do I actually want for this? Regardless of what I think someone will pay, what actually feels good to me? And if you fully embody that, like, this is what feels good to me, this is what will allow me to fully embody my artistry or fully provide the best possible service, then you'll attract those people, because that's the signature that you're vibrating at.
This is such a great point, because I feel like so many people, they think if I start charging what I really want, which might be more than they're currently charging, no one will pay me. No one will pay that price.
Yeah. And you got to realize that if there are certain people who don't want to pay that price, you have to be okay with that. You have to be able to be detached from that, because they weren't the right person for you. And it's the ability to also be able to walk away, to be detached, that is in line with abundance.
Knowing that the right people will come in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because you can't have both, right? You can't charge bottom rock prices and expect, you can't want high tier prices, but just be like only willing, only attracting people on a lower tier, and only be like expecting them to pay you 10,000 when they're only willing to pay you 100. It doesn't work.
Practically speaking, how can someone attract clients that are willing to pay more for their services? Is there an energetic or practical component to it?
Yeah, it's what I just said. It's feeling into what is aligned to you in terms of your pricing, regardless of what you think the market will pay.
Getting clear on your own vibe and frequency first.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. One of my mentors this was years ago, he used to live in Bali, and all of the other coaches he would speak to, the average rate was like $100 an hour for coaching. And he he didn't have a reality limiter. Let's just say that.
Ooh, I love that phrase.
So he didn't take on what they say and go, oh, well, maybe I'll charge 120 because they're charging 100. He charged what felt aligned to him, which was 1,000 per hour. And he fully embodied that in himself, and that's what he charged, and that's what I paid him, and that's what everyone else paid him, and that was completely aligned to him, regardless of what other people were charging.
How do you think he fully embodied it? What is the key to really getting aligned with, yes, I will charge this much and I feel good about it, and the energy that I put out matches that? There's not a incongruency between my confidence in charging that much.
Yeah. So it's going through that practice, right? So to spend what everyone else is doing or what you think other people's expectations are, because that's usually based around limitation and scarcity anyway. And tune into yourself. Tune into, okay, what feels good for me? And then literally say a number, 1,000 for this service. How does that feel? Okay, let me tune into that. It feels good. How does 5,000 feel? And literally go through that practice and see what you feel. And you'll know. When you're in touch with yourself, you'll know what feels aligned, because it should feel expansive, but it should also feel aligned at the same time, right? Because you could go 10 million and you'd be like, well, is that coming from soul or ego, right? It might be from soul, but it could also be from ego. And you'll know that internally, because it will feel off if it's too little or too much. You'll get a rough range of what feels good to you. And when you have that, you don't need to spend too much time on it. You can just do this practice once and you can re-tap into it at different points. Okay, this feels good right now. I'm going to go with it. And then when you offer that to someone, it will feel good. You'll be like, this is what it costs. Would you like to work with me? Yes or no? Right? And it just feels completely neutral or a positive feeling inside to say that.
Because you found alignment in yourself already before that moment.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about time abundance. How do you perceive time, which often is talked about as a very limited, scarce resource? We only have so much time. How do you frame that in your own life to make sure that you see time in an expansive way?
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the things I'm still working through, just to be real. One thing that has helped me is realizing that my life, when I continue on this path, my life gets better every year because I'm continuing to do all these things and get more in alignment and expand. So that makes me excited for the future. So I don't feel like I'm running out of time. I'm excited to spend more time and be here for more time. That's just a real practical answer. When it comes to time in general, when I used to be really impatient in the past, it was because I was coming from lack and needing to change my current situation now. And for me, it was really just a realization that that doesn't work. That doesn't help when you have that impatience. Now, there's a difference between impatience and urgency. Urgency is moving quickly, moving smartly, and getting things done, right? But that doesn't mean it's coming from lack. That just means you're just acting and you're going, right? You're just in the flow and moving. To create time abundance, it also helps to know, what are your beliefs about life in general? Do you believe that you just die and that's the end and you maybe go to hell or maybe heaven, or not that, and you just go in the ground? My own beliefs are that there is absolutely God and we get reincarnated. I truly believe that. That's the belief that feels true to me. So I know, like, my belief is I just got plenty of time, right? I've got an abundance of time, and there's nothing that I'm in a rush to do. In the Bible, it says that the devil rushes and God takes his time. So anytime there's this feeling of rush or this needs to happen right now, recognize that that is, you could say the devil, you could say it's your lower self, you could say it's your ego acting, and that's not serving you. So that's just a good filtering mechanism to use that you can take practically. Is anytime you're in an interaction with anything and you feel rushed to do it, take a step back, because there's no possible reason why you need to rush in that moment. There could be a reason to have urgency, absolutely, but not to feel rushed, and there is a big distinction there. So when it comes to time abundance, I would just say, look, I value time very, very highly. It is, in a practical way, it is a scarce resource, right? In this incarnation, at least, because we only have an X amount of time before we pass away. So to me, it's like understanding that and then just looking at, okay, well, I only have this much time in a day, or I have this much time in a day. What do I want to do with that time? And that's what then gives me the ability to act with urgency, which then helps me to make more aligned decisions in terms of saying yes or no to things, which then makes me feel good about the time that I'm putting in a day, the time that I have in a day, and then in a week, and in a month, and then and then a year. So it's being very clear when it comes to time. It's being very clear on what is my most important focus right now. And this is a masculine trait, and having horse blinders on and going towards that, because then the time you're able to effortlessly put more of your time. You're choosing to invest more time, which anytime you're investing into something, that is the frequency of money. Investing is the frequency of money, which is the frequency of abundance. So it all kind of goes in a circle.
I love that. Investing is the frequency of money.
Yeah.
How can someone apply that energetically in their life?
So there's four main subsets when it comes to money. There's cash, which is what most people think about, how much cash you got on you in your bank account, physical money. There's then gifts. So receiving a gift, you gave me an amazing book last time I was on here. That is the frequency of abundance, because it's for both of us. You're giving, which by the way is one of the other parts of it, and I'm receiving, which is a very abundant energy exchange. So gifts is the second one. Then there is investing, which is what we just talked about, which is, okay, I'm going to invest into this education, into this course, into this house, and you're putting the investment in now to receive from your future self later. And the final part to it is future money. And future money is usually where there's the most blocks around. This could be taking out a mortgage. This could be taking out a loan. Maybe it's a loan for a course or training you want to go on. Now, typically, people have a lot of dis-ease around taking out a loan. There's a lot of scarcity attached to it. But you can actually look at that. What if you looked at it from a place of, wow, I get this money now so that future me can benefit from it. What a gift, the fact that I can access this resource. What does that do? It transmutes that to gratitude, which again is abundance. So I just thought I'd give those like four main categories when it comes to just money in general, because by knowing that, you're able to invite more of that in, because you can see the different ways that money can play out, the frequency of money can play out.
Is there an aspect of abundance we haven't touched on that you'd really like to share with the listener?
I'm sure there is. Let me check. I've got some stuff on my phone. Yeah. So another aspect when it comes to abundance is allowance. And I don't mean allowance as in money your parents give you. I mean allowing it into your life. Because it is that. Allowing is a feminine frequency. If you're a man in your masculine, it's a lot of doing. It's a lot of force. It's a lot of power. But this part of abundance is allowing it to come in. And within that category, one thing I would talk about is, what are you calling in and why? Because you want some more money, right? How much money do you want is the first question. The second question to that is, why do you want it? And why specifically do you want it? Because the universe responds to clarity. If your one thought is, I want this much money, and then your next thought is, but I'm not worthy of it, and then your next thought is, well, I need this next week, and then it's a distortion in the quantum field, because you're putting out all of these different signatures and it's getting muffled. So having clarity around what it is you're calling in is a key aspect here. So, okay, you want $10 million, let's say. Why? Well, I want to buy a house. I want to, invest into this new business. I want to take care of my parents and pay off their debt. Okay, that's $750,000. What's the other $9,250,000 for? I don't know, just other stuff. Well, what? See what I mean? This is the key, to know exactly what you're calling in and why. Because then when you have that specific goal, you can then actually energetically be open to that. But then you then have a clear goal to actually work towards physically, because now you're working specifically for this goal and what that then leads to. So you're stacking up your like energetic coupons in the abundance category by doing that. So tune in. That's a good practice to do at home, is to just write out, okay, how much money do I want? Whatever comes to you, first of all, to do. You don't have to think too much about it. Just whatever comes. Okay, cool. What are the things that I'm going to actually do with that money? And write it down. Categorize it. If you don't know how much things cost, just Google average cost of banana boat. If you want a banana boat, whatever you want. And just note it all down and then tally it up specifically. Because then once you know that, you now have, it's like when you have a goal, it's like you have the dartboard to aim at, right? If you don't have a goal, you're just throwing darts and you're just hoping one of them hits something. At least when you have the dartboard, you might still not be the best at darts, but at least you've got a dartboard to aim at. So you are going to hit it more times than you would if you didn't have the dartboard. And it's the same way with the goal here and having that specificity around how much money you're calling in. And then that can expand, that can change over time. And it does, but you've got to start with something.
If money could talk, what hilarious and unexpected advice might it give us?
That's a great question. I think if money could talk, it would just say, why are you locking me up? Why are you keeping me in a cage? Like, why are you treating me like this? You know, I thought we were supposed to be friends. That's what money would be screaming, trying to freaking get free, right? And what the human doesn't realize, who's ignoring that, is you're trying to get free by making something else imprisoned, by making something else not free. And it only makes sense that if you want freedom in an area of your life, you have to give the other areas of your life freedom as well.
If you could exchange money for quirky superpowers, what powers would you choose? And how would they help you create even more abundance?
If I could exchange money for quirky superpowers, what would I exchange it for? That's a great question. I would definitely I've always wanted to be able to fly. I don't know if that's quirky or not, but that's always been the one thing I've always wanted to be able to do, because I associate flights with freedom. I was speaking with a team member yesterday who was asking about the plane ride. He's not really been to many places around the world. So when I told him that the journey back is like 20 hours, he was gobsmacked and he was like, "Oh my God, dude, I'm so sorry." I was like, I'm so excited for this trip because I feel freedom when I'm flying. I'm in a completely different headspace when I'm flying. I can literally look down at the earth and gain new perspective. It's my favorite experience to be in is flight, whether that's physical flight or I'm in a dream or something closely simulated to that. So yeah, for me, it's always the ability to fly.
Beautiful. Today's your last day in Bali for a little while before you come back. What is the most abundant thing about Bali for you?
So many things. I would say I can't give one. I'll give a couple because it's too hard. Some of the most abundant things about Bali is, first of all, the nature of Bali. It's so giving. Nature just gives so effortlessly here. The people here have physically less, financially less than the people who are visiting the island, yet they're the most abundant giving people. We didn't talk about giving too much, but giving is one of the most key aspects of abundance, the ability to give. And notice that you have an accident on your scooter, something's up with you, the first person there to help you is a Balinese person. It's not a Western person, it's a Balinese person, because they give and help so freely, because that's what they believe in their culture and in their religion. And that is so abundant. And also, just the energy here is, if you can feel energy, which I know you absolutely can, it is a much more expansive, abundant energy. It's so light. And yeah, Bali is such an abundant place, truly.
I love the aspect about giving.
I'm glad we touched on that. That's a key one. That just practice giving now. It doesn't have to be crazy things. It can be so simple. It can be a compliment. It can be a dollar to a charity. It can be just giving somebody your time who you know they'd benefit from it, and maybe they can't afford to pay you for it, but just giving your time anyway. Just the more you give, the more you receive. And the last thing I'll say on giving and receiving is shifting that idea of giving and receiving to gifting and receiving. Because oftentimes giving implies you're going to get something back, which works on the laws of reciprocity of humans, but it could be more abundant, let's say. And so I like to think of it in terms of gifting. And the reason I make that distinction is because when you gift something, you don't expect something back. It's a gift, right? You're giving it from a pure intention. And it's like, if it's your birthday and I give you a gift, I'm not expecting you to give me a gift back, right? That'd be silly. And so in the same way with giving, I look at it like gifting. And why do I do that? Because then I'm not expecting anything back. I'm truly giving from a heart-centered place. And it feels a lot more abundant, and it's received with a much more abundant energy to it as well.
Ebrahim, thank you so much for gifting us your time today and for sharing your wisdom.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, James.